Good morning, gardening friends. It's Sunday, the 14th of August at about 7:30 in the morning, and I thought I would just do a video walking around my home to show you what's in bloom, how the gardens look. Here you can see my lilies of the Nile have had many blossoms, and there are a couple more to come. On the other side of my sidewalk, it just had one, but it was a spectacular one. My pelargoniums are starting to look a little leggy. Spiderwort's looking good. It thickens out nicely. These bananas are looking nice in the front yard. They're not as huge as the ones in the back, but they're looking good nonetheless. It's been a couple of weeks since I did the last video. It's been raining every day, which is a blessing and a curse. The blessing part is it keeps the temperature cool, keeps it in the high 80s, low 90s. This area has grown nicely. Oh, what I was doing in the last 2 weeks is doing a lot of pruning. So I went ahead and trimmed up my camellias, just sort of kept them in shape. I'm trying to be careful. You don't want to trim them too late because you'll prune off the flowers for this fall. The caladiums look spectacular here. The birds aren't happy because I'm walking around by their bird feeder. Not too many flowers of this Rose of Sharon, but it's a white Rose of Sharon. These caladiums look fantastic, and I still have the pink cone flowers. I lost a couple of them and replanted, and with this rain every day, it has gone pretty far to making sure that they remain alive. Now these caladiums were the little bulblets that I was given free from a local store just because they were going to throw them out. They're the same White Christmas as the larger ones over here. And I just dumped them in a few piles, and they're looking nice. I'll have to thin them out a little. Butterfly ginger's doing well in the front yard. It's really smelling up this whole part of my yard. My cassia is doing pretty well. This was what I had planted this year. You may recall it was in a pot back in, well, I think it was February or March in the backyard, and I planted it here. It's doing well. My Limelight Hydrangeas finally blooming. It's a little shady for it here, but it appears to be growing. My string beans are okay. There probably are some beans on the plants. They have been bug eaten. The leaves have. It's not the prettiest to look at, but I was able to get a few handfuls of string beans out of it. I think I just planted them too late. And tomatoes this year did miserably. I've got 3 tomato plants, and I think I've had 1 little cherry tomato from the lot. It's just not been a good year for tomatoes here. The pentas are doing well today. Here's another cone flower. Mexican petunias. A potato vine that I have to get rid of. Got some 4 o'clocks, that one of the few plants that made it from seed earlier this year. These are the bee balm that I had earlier this year. I'm just going to leave I'm not going to bother cutting the back. I'll just leave the seeds there, see if they reseed. And I've got to thin some of this Spiderwort out because it's taking over this corner. It likes shade. And this is lemon balm in the front. Haven't used any of it yet. I did work a little bit on this side yard between my property and the neighbors. This is Kimberly Fern that has just grown in my rocks. There's actually landscape fabric underneath it. And the Kimberly Fern is just so prolific that it's thickening out and doing well there. This little area looks nice. Going into my backyard. Let's see over here. My Australian tree fern is still growing. Hopefully it'll last through the winter here. I may have to protect the top of it by covering it over with some kind of a cloth. I did plant some balloon flowers here just to get a little bit of color. One of my chrysanthemums died. I decided to leave the chrysanthemums because they were greening up nicely. And here you can see I moved some of those Kimberly ferns all along this left-hand side of the sidewalk. I figured I'll just let them grow wild and fill that whole area in. I did trim all of these bushes in the last couple of weeks, the boxwood in the pot, my 2 Pride of Mobile azaleas. This one, you may recall, I had cut back severely this spring, and it's leafed out nicely. Holly's coming back nicely. Here you can see the Kimberly Fern. Really, it's easy to transplant because it's in rocks or gravel, so you just yank them up and stick them in. I don't know if this camellia is going to bloom this year. I cut it back last year. I don't see any flower buds on it yet, and it's usually one of the earliest ones to bloom, so it may have missed another year. But it will eventually bloom. Back here, that's my lily of the valley bush. It's doing okay. The angel's trumpet has grown huge. No buds yet. Hopefully it'll have some flower buds. Go ahead and close the gate. My potato vine is doing okay along the ground. I had to put it there because lily beetles like to eat it. And it seems like they leave it alone when it's on the ground, but the minute it starts getting above the ground, they really attack the leaves. You can't kill the stuff, but who wants to look at a holy leaf? I trimmed this camellia back. This is a Yuletide. Don't see any buds on it yet. This has done well in here. That plant that I dug up from the side of the fence that came over from my neighbors is really filling out. And I cut these big camellias, and you can see flower buds if you look really closely. So I had to be particular in cutting it that I didn't trim too much and take all this year's flowers off. My Satsuma's doing nicely. I don't see any fruit on this tree. Butterfly gingers are still doing well. Fragrance is outstanding. There's my bed of Mexican heather. More butterfly gingers. I'm a little disappointed this year in my hydrangeas. For some reason they just refused to bloom, so I trimmed them back to at least make them less floppy. The big thing I did over here was shape this camellia archway. It is a pain to get the top of that flat. I had to get some help to do it. And I keep this was a baptismal font that I got at a second-hand shop. Birds like to use that, so I filled it with water. I refilled it, cleaned it yesterday. One thing about white marble is it gets all kinds of dirt inside of it and other stuff from the birds. This area looks well. I'm having to fight off mosquitoes. I didn't put any mosquito spray on me. You can see the flax lilies against that window have done really well. This garden has matured nicely. Here you can see kumquats are coming. Satsumas. They're going to start turning orange in another month or two. Summer in this garden is mostly one of maintaining. I don't do a lot of new planting. I just like to let what's here grow naturally. I'm having to fight off mosquitoes. I apologize for the wavy nature of the video. This is the spiderwort that I planted this year, and you can see, I think I even showed you in the video where I just took a pencil and made a hole and jammed those bits in. This is some kind of a fungus that comes up every year. I used to have an oak tree here, and the stump of it is still, even though it was ground down, it's underground, so whatever that stuff is, it's feeding on the old oak bits and pieces left. The caladiums are really at their best this time of the year. There's another angel's trumpet. Let's see if there are any flower buds on it. No, I don't see any yet. I don't see any yet. These cycads have done really well. You can see how green they are. Those are the ones that I had totally cut back earlier this year. My ligularia is getting bigger and bigger. I don't see any flower spikes yet. And the smaller one on this side is growing. I did these little boxwoods too, along the edge of my bed. Really, the last couple of weeks have been a lot of shaping and trimming. What's really spectacular this time of the year are my bananas. They are huge. They've eclipsed my crepe myrtle. I'm going to have to rearrange these plants, get rid of this ladder. I used that ladder as I was going to throw it out. It was an old painting ladder. And I put potted plants on it, but I really don't need it anymore this year. My plumeria has put out a lot of leaves. Here's the other angel's trumpet, the datura. And here's one of the fruits that the house wrens have attacked. I have house wrens that work over this whole yard. My pitcher plants are still doing well. I do feed them any bug that's in the house that I kill. I throw inside the pitcher plant. I also have a Venus flytrap for smaller things. This pitcher plant is still fine. And the rose garden is looking good. And as you can see, the dew is still on the roses. I had to lift the papyrus this week because they're at the stage now, if I sit at this table, they were kind of in my face. So I just lifted them on an old bulb pot. And my Gaillardias are blooming again. Still have this white crepe myrtle blooming. It is messy. You can see the bits of white crepe myrtle flowers all over everything over here. It looks like snow. I do kind of try to blow it off every day. And I'll leave you with a picture of my bananas. They're just, I've never seen them this verdant and this large back here before. Okay. Have a good day. Till next time.